Welcome to the Sleep to Dream Analytics Explainer video, where better sleep starts with better understanding.
You know, professional sports teams will spend millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, just to find a tiny competitive edge. But what if the single most powerful performance enhancer out there wasn't cooked up in a lab or found in a gym? What if it was actually free?
Okay, so listen to this. It's a pretty startling observation from a former pro wrestler. He noticed that the biggest, strongest guys in the ring, well, they had this one specific weakness. Now, it sounds like a weird, random piece of trivia, right? But it's actually a massive clue that points to a hidden factor affecting pretty much every athlete on the planet.
And that really gets to the core of what we're talking about today. How in the world could something as simple as sleep connect to something so dramatic? Well, as it turns out, that connection is incredibly deep, and it shows us exactly why sleep is the ultimate untapped resource for athletic performance.
To really get this, we have to completely change how we think about sleep. It is not passive rest. It is an active biological process that is absolutely critical for training, recovery, and competition. So over the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly how it impacts everything from raw strength to those split-second, game-winning decisions. All right, let's kick things off with our first big idea, your body's own natural performance rhythm. You probably know it as your circadian rhythm, and believe me, it has a huge say in when you're at your best and when you're not.
So, think of it like this. Your body has its own built-in 24-hour clock that's constantly telling you when to power up and when to power down. And one of the main things driving that clock is your core body temperature, which naturally rises and falls all day. And as you're about to see, that temperature cycle is a huge deal for physical performance.
For most of us, that temperature peak hits in the late afternoon or early evening. And right in that window, say between 4 and 6 p.m., that's when athletes are at their absolute strongest. We're talking peak muscle power, peak aerobic capacity. Your body is just biologically primed and ready to go.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting in the real world. A study looked at 40 years of NFL games. When West Coast teams played on the East Coast before 8 p.m., their win rate was basically a coin flip, 49%. But in games after 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. for their body clocks, right in that peak performance window, their win rate shot up to 66%. That's a massive advantage, all thanks to their internal clock.
And check this out. It might be even more powerful in baseball. A 10-year MLB study found that when a team traveled across 3 time zones, their circadian advantage gave them a win rate of over 60%. Compare that to the home field advantage, which is only about 53%. That's insane. Their body clock was a bigger weapon than their own fans in their own stadium.
Okay, so that's the upside. Now let's flip the coin and talk about our second key idea. What happens when that tank isn't full? Because a lack of sleep will slowly and sneakily destroy your performance in ways you might not even notice.
Now, it's really important to know there are 2 types of sleep loss. There's acute sleep loss, like pulling an all-nighter. And surprisingly, the research on that is kind of mixed when it comes to raw strength. But the real enemy for an athlete is chronic sleep loss. That slow burn of losing just an hour or 2 of sleep night after night. That's the debt that really adds up.
And here's the crucial part. Chronic sleep loss goes after your brain. Sure, your muscles might still be able to lift the weight, but your reaction time gets slower. Your judgment gets cloudy. One study even found that as an MLB season wears on, batters' ability to tell a strike from a ball actually gets worse, and it's likely because of fatigue. So your physical tools are there, but the brain controlling them just isn't working right.
So this brings up a pretty fascinating question, right? If losing sleep is so bad, what happens if we do the exact opposite? What if we actually tried to get more sleep? Well, a really cool study with college basketball players decided to find out, and they put the whole team on a 10-hour-a-night sleep schedule. And the results were just incredible. After about 5 to 7 weeks of getting a full 10 hours of sleep every night, these players got measurably faster in their sprints. Not only that, their shooting accuracy went up, both from the free throw line and from three-point range. It was just clear, undeniable proof. More sleep equals better performance. Period.
But, you know, the problem isn't always just about having bad habits. For our third section, we're going to look at the really serious risks, when poor sleep is actually a medical condition that could put not just a career, but a life in danger.
And this brings us right back to that wrestler from the beginning. His observation lines up perfectly with a condition called obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA. This is a disorder where your airway literally collapses and closes up while you're sleeping. It's especially common in athletes who need to be big, like football linemen, because that extra size and mass also increases the risk of the airway getting blocked.
The long-term effects are absolutely staggering. Research from the CDC found that retired NFL linemen have a 52% higher rate of dying from heart disease compared to the general population. The very body type that made them pros is directly linked to a severe health risk that can follow them long after they're done playing.
And the danger isn't just some far-off problem, it's immediate. An exhausted athlete is an injured athlete. It's that simple. Studies clearly show that getting 6 hours of sleep or less is linked to a much higher risk of injury. On top of that, after a concussion, sleep problems are one of the most common symptoms. We see them in up to 70% of cases. A tired brain is a vulnerable brain.
Okay, so we've seen the science and we've seen the risks, which are frankly pretty scary. So for our last section, let's talk about the solution. There is a clear, actionable game plan that any athlete or team can use to start taking sleep seriously.
The playbook is pretty straightforward. First, you schedule. That means building your practice and travel plans around getting enough sleep. Second, you screen. Use simple questionnaires to find out who's struggling before it becomes a big problem. Third, you treat. If you find a real disorder, like sleep apnea, you get the medical team involved right away. And finally, you educate. Make sure everyone, from the star player to the head coach, understands that sleep is a non-negotiable part of being an elite athlete.
So look, if you take away just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Sleep is not downtime. It's not what you do after the real work is done. It is an active, essential part of training, just as important as lifting weights or eating right. It really all boils down to this one question. Every serious athlete schedules their workouts. They schedule their meals, down to the last calorie. But are you giving that same focus, that same planning, to your recovery? Because the science couldn't be clearer. The road to becoming a better athlete runs right through your bedroom.
Thank you for watching the Sleep to Dream Analytics Explainer video. We hope you sleep well and dream easy.